Welcome, everybody, to day 2 of the 365-day All About How podcasting experiment from growingau.com, where we are looking to answer the question, does more content get you more followers? We have a very value-packed episode for you today. Super excited to bring it to you. If you're coming and listening again from yesterday, good to be talking to you today. Hope you had a very highly successful day yesterday, and I hope today is going well as well. So we're going to have one heck of an awesome episode for you today. We're talking about reiterating your brand, relaunching your brand. If you find that something's not working and it's time to do it all over again, we're going to talk about the correct way to initiate that process today. Something that we had to do here on growingau.com, so I'm talking to you directly from experience. Really excited about that. So let's go ahead and roll the intro, and we're going to jump into this episode. Thanks for listening. This is All About How. Let's get into it.
It's all about how in 2020 we're going to make the world a better place than we found it.
So why would you even want to relaunch or reiterate your brand in the first place? Well, honestly, it can come down to a whole bunch of different reasons. One of which is basically you just find that what you're doing isn't working. You want to try new things, you want to add new things to your company, but maybe whatever it is you're doing just doesn't necessarily facilitate the changes that you need to make. And it's time for essentially a rebirth, a restart, a relaunch, or specifically the way we're going to be referring to it today, a reiteration. Because relaunch has a negative connotation to it that means that essentially you're going to be changing everything that is about your business. A new product, a new proof of concept, new content. But essentially what we want to be talking about is a reiteration, which isn't necessarily changing the initial insights that you have with your business. It's just changing basically the way that you do things, the way that you handle problems, and maybe the way that you produce the content that you were already producing. And essentially the reason we want to talk about reiterating and not relaunching is from a podcast that we referred to in the last episode, Starting Greatness by Mike Maples Jr. It's Maples Jr. And he talks about in this podcast with Andy Ratcliffe, he talks about the difference between relaunching and reiterating, and how relaunching is just starting from zero. You're essentially doing something that is eventually going to become right and consensus. And they have this entrepreneurial matrix that they talk about, which is being right in consensus or right in non-consensus, or also wrong. And obviously, if you're wrong, you don't make money or you're not successful. But if you're right in consensus, you also don't make money. And then everyone else is going to jump on board and say, I want to create content in this field. I want to do it as well. They're essentially going to cloud up and muddy your market space and make it harder for you to grow right from the get-go. So we want to be right and non-consensus. But when you iterate on your product, which is essentially relaunching the business, because again, as we said, relaunching the business is changing the product. When you do that, what happens is you essentially are, instead of changing your market, you're changing the product to fit a market, which is by definition becoming right and consensus. I know that's kind of like a weird, it's weird to think about. It might be kind of hard to wrap your head around. I do recommend going to listen to their podcast. They explain it very well. But we're going to be talking about today reiterating your brand. If you want to keep referring to it as relaunching, if it makes it easier for you, that's fine. These tips will still apply. However, just for our sake and purposes here, we are going to be referring to it as reiterating. So we're going to jump right into it here. We're not going to waste any more of your time. What is the first thing you need to do when it comes to reiterating your brand? And the way that we described about it, and this is all in a blog post on growingau.com. If you want to go back over it, review it, or even just read it after this podcast, go ahead and do so. It is clear out the old to make space for the new. I'm going to just give a direct example for this one. When we relaunched Growing AU here a couple days ago in 2020, we had to go through the Instagram pages, we had to go through the YouTube and just clear out a whole bunch of the old content that was no longer directly relevant and or supporting the new message and essentially the new content that we were trying to get across on the Growing AU page. What the reason for that is because, and this step and how much work is needed to be done here is going to be predicated by how long you have existed. The John.au brand, which is essentially the birthplace of the Growing AU, was created in 2017. It's 2020 now, and there's pictures on there from 3 years ago that are just no longer relevant in the grand scheme of things. So we wanted to get rid of those to make sure that people who are coming in for the first time after this new iteration are not confused by old content and thinking like, what is going on here? This is not at all like what they're producing now. I'm really confused. So we went through there and we cleared it all out. We also posted a YouTube video about reacting to some of the old content. If that's something that's interesting to you, go ahead and check that out. But basically, yeah, we need to clear out all that old stuff to make space for the new stuff. And basically the reason for that is because think about the people, as we just said, that are going to be coming in. We don't want to confuse them with our old content being mixed in with our new content. We want to make sure that everything is very crystal clear, and it's that clarity that's going to essentially, in my opinion, increase the chance of those people becoming followers, subscribers, viewers, however you want to refer to them. So once we've cleared out the old, we've made space to bring our new content to the table. What's the next thing we need to do? Well, this is essentially where the reiteration really begins. You've heard of out with a bang. I'm referring to this as in with a bang. We want to do something here that's going to catch our audience and the new market's attention. We want to do something that is big, that is essentially letting the world know that we have arrived, we are back, we are different now, we are better than we were before. For growingau.com, that's exactly what we did. We created growingau.com. Before that didn't exist. We created our own personalized hub on the internet space. And that was how we essentially, said to the world and our brand and the people that were following us, hey, we're going to create a space on the internet. We're going to create a website. Bada boom, bada bing. Next thing you know, we had that website up and going. I'm super proud of it. I'm excited to continue to use that website to grow the Growing AU message. So that's how we went in with a bang. Maybe for you, it's going to be, we're going to start introducing podcasts. We're going to start introducing YouTube videos. We're going to start introducing more social media marketing. We're going to start introducing maybe even just a new logo. We're going to start introducing, editing to our content that we're producing, or maybe we're going to change our packaging design for our product. Maybe we're going to change the materials in our product. Maybe we're going to change, something that is about our customer service, right? We're going to do something that is big, that preferably your existing audience and the new audience or market, whether you're a social media account or a business, are going to see. We want to do something here that's going to capture the market's attention, that says, hello, we're here. What's up? Pay attention to me because we're back. We're better than ever. And we're ready to crush it at whatever it is that we are doing. So we want to be in with a bang to let the audience know we have arrived. And this actually becomes a great place to segue into our next tip, which is growing with your audience. But before we get there, I want to make it very clear that when you are reiterating your brand, if you have an existing audience, if you have people that have been loyal to the brand before, that have been following you for a while, maybe they bought your products, maybe they're returning subscribers, maybe they're followers on Instagram, whatever it is you're doing, you need to let them know that you're changing. A lot of people here may think that's counterintuitive. They may think, why would I want to let people know who loved the original iteration that we're changing to something new? Well, it's very simple. It comes down to a book by Dale Partridge called People Have a Profit that is linked in the blog post if you want to check it out. And People Have a Profit talks about essentially not deceiving your audience. You're not deceiving your customers, you're not deceiving your employees, you're putting both of them before your profit. And if you were to put your growth and your reiteration and your new marketing strategies before your existing audience, that is putting profit before your people. And eventually they're going to find out. Your customers, your audience is a smart group of people. They're eventually going to find out that something has changed, right? It's going to happen. So better to let them know that something is changing in the process of the change rather than them figuring out that you did it, dare I say, deceptively, to not let them find out, because then you're going to probably lose a good chunk of that audience. And that's something that doesn't need to happen because you can let them know that you're changing. And basically the other reason that you want to let them know that you are changing is because it allows you to then transition into step 3, which is growing with your audience. If you tell your audience, hey, we're looking to reiterate, we're looking to make a change to our brand, we're looking to improve, we're looking to be better, just ask them straight out and very simply, what do you want to see? How can we be better? This goes back into Ray Dalio's book Principles, talking about radical transparency and radical open-mindedness. You're talking to your audience directly. You guys are essentially what makes us successful. You are what allows us to continue to do this and to continue to have the ability to reiterate. So what is it that you would like to see? How would you like our next iteration after all this is done? What would you like to see from our company? And they're going to tell you a lot of valuable insight and give you a lot of valuable surprises. And that is something that they talk about in the Starting Greatness podcast, is that no iteration should be gone through without some sort of surprise. So you might talk to your audience and find out we don't need to iterate. They love what we're doing. All we need to do is have more time to grow as a business and in the market, and have more time to market and just let things happen naturally over time. That might be the surprise. You may be doing everything just fine and you don't actually need to reiterate, but you won't know that until you've polled and talked to your audience. Grow with your audience. Ask them what they want to see. Let them know what you're doing. Let them be part of this change with you, because ultimately they're as much a part of your brand or your business as you and your employees are. So really, grow with the audience. Talk to them. They're your most valuable source here. Leverage them. They care about you. They wouldn't be following you otherwise. So use that. Allow them to care about you. It's really a beautiful thing growing with them. So finally, the last little tip here that we want to put into this podcast is maintaining your initial insight. So I'm going to refer to this 2 separate ways. If you're selling a physical product, if you're selling a physical service, you're selling something, right? You want to maintain the initial insight you had. Something out there inspired you to start this business or this brand. And we want to make sure that that is consistent through the next iteration. So basically, If your initial insight was something that made the product incredible to people, you don't want to just go ahead and change that, right? We're not iterating on the product. We're iterating on our market. We're iterating on our techniques, our strategies, but we're not iterating on the product or the brand or the initial thing that started us off, right? We want to maintain that level of consistency through this change. So maybe, you're an Instagram page that's into photography, nighttime urban photography, for example, as we talked about in the last podcast, which was the one social media hack to grow and explode your social media account in 2020. And in that episode, we talked about photography and nighttime urban photography to kind of niche down. So let's say you're reiterating your photography page and you did nighttime urban photography. You can't lose that. That has been you from the beginning. You need to maintain that consistency through the new iterations. Maybe you're selling different products. Maybe you're creating content on, YouTube and Instagram. You want to maintain the consistency. You want to essentially ensure that whatever made you, you is still making you, you, and your brand what your brand is known for. You can't just change everything, because here's the deal. If you end up changing everything and you lose the initial thing, that unspoken thing that made the brand what it is, in all likelihood, you're going to lose the brand altogether, and that's the last thing we want to happen. So you want to maintain that consistency, maintain that initial insight, maintain the initial kind of spark of inspiration that made you start the brand in the first place. Maintain that through the iteration. Don't lose who you are in this process of change, in this time of change that you are currently going through. And look, here's the thing. If this is something that you were thinking about doing and you really want to make sure it's successful, go ahead and check out the blog post. Go ahead and check out growingau.com. And the reason I say that is not just to plug it, but it's also because we are literally in the process of a new iteration. By the time you're listening to this, there's a good chance that we are still reiterating. We're still part of that process. So we are going to be going through it. You can see and look at our results from before and after the reiteration. Maybe we'll even do a podcast episode about that, looking at the different results over time. So go ahead and check out growingau.com. I do think it'll provide you with some really valuable resources when it comes to relaunching or reiterating your brand. I hope you found this podcast valuable today. I appreciate you listening through all the way to the end. This has been day 2 of the 365-day podcasting experiment. Only like 363 days left to go, and I look forward to every single one of them. I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow on day 3 of the 365-day podcasting experiment. This has been John Knott from growingau.com with the All About How podcast. I hope you have a very highly successful day.